Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Savage Goose Show, where we talk about all things Savage Worlds in the past week. I'm Goose, and today we are going to kick off, maybe not with newsletter, just because I don't think it went out today. I didn't get a newsletter this week. That being said, there is news that was posted on Pinnacle's website. And I did check a few places to see if there was a newsletter, but based on everything that I saw, there was not a newsletter. So, for example, if I go ahead and I'm going to share this tab real quick, this is the archive of all the different newsletters that have gone out. There wasn't one for today. However, there was several articles listed on the Pinnacle website. So now, unfortunately, I only saw these three. I think there might be more, but we can't really tell because the news site area is only showing us like older stuff. It's not showing these most recent three articles. So some technical stuff going on over at Pinnacle that we can hopefully they can address. But there is some news that we can talk about. So let's go ahead and start with this news. Savage Worlds, Doomtown, and so much more at Gen Con. Gen Con is next week. If you're going, I am not going, so do not plan on seeing me there. I will not be there. But if you are planning on attending, keep your eyes out for other Pinnacle stuff, Pine Box stuff, Savage World stuff, Deadlands Dark Ages, which I'm going to go ahead and pull this down here. Here's the Deadlands Dark Ages stuff here. This is a different design than I've seen before for Deadlands Dark Ages, so something's changing here. The stuff I saw before, though, was like during Suede release, so this is something else that's going on in it. But it looks cool. I'm just not sure. I'm not entirely sure what's going on with the art. So the art definitely changed. But if you're interested in playing any Deadlands Dark Ages, there are going to be almost 30 one-hour test drives of doing Deadlands Dark Ages. According to this, many of them are sold out, so make sure you kind of jump on that if you're interested in playing some Deadlands Dark Ages at Gen Con. There is going to be a What's Up with Pinnacle panel at the JW Marriott. I would love to hear what's going on with Pinnacle, so I really hope that someone at Pinnacle is going to be recording this so that we can watch it later. Please watch it later, or live stream it. I prefer a live stream, actually. But at the very least, can we please get a recording of this so that we can watch it later and we can all hear what's happening at Pinnacle and hear all the cool news. I want to hear about it. Some more stuff about Doomtown, the card game. If you're thinking about that, it's a really cool card game. They call it an expandable card game. I think it's sort of like a living card game where when you buy a set, you know what cards you're getting, and it is really fun. I haven't gotten to play a whole lot of it, but you got too many other hobbies on my mind. Also, if you're at Gen Con, you can for any of those unable to make it to Gen Con, go ahead and head over to the Emmy Awards, where Pine Box Middle School RPG was nominated for an award. So go ahead and check that out. There is it's not here. Oh, and then the winners of this are going to be announced at Gen Con August 2nd on the Gen Con Twitch channel. So mark your calendars for 7 p.m. August 2nd on 7 p.m. Eastern time for Gen Con TV on Twitch. Check that out. There's also other news about Savage Rifts, which I know a lot of you like Savage Rifts. A lot of you care a lot about Savage Rifts. You go ahead and share that tab. Savage Rifts is getting a core reprint that's coming to BackerKit. If you're interested in getting some Savage Rifts materials, if you want to get like the new reprints of the core rulebooks in Suede, I have these first 3 books here for deluxe edition. I'd love to get them personally for Suede. But if you're interested in getting this stuff, they are doing another core reprint that's going to BackerKit. Take a look at this page to see all of the details about that and how you can get your hands on backing some of the new core reprints for Savage Rifts. Last piece of news from Pinnacle that I could find is that there is another Savage Saturday Cinema coming up called, what was it called? Of Calls and Cauldrons. It's going to be set in the world of Holler and Appalachian Apocalypse. We got some information from Wild Eye Woodard. Apologies for the newsletter delay. There's an additional article on hold while we wait for an update. As it happens, the newsletter will go out. So there is a newsletter coming, which means it sounds like there might be an interesting piece of article update. So hopefully we'll hear more about that soon. And yes, and thanks, Peter. Yes, that is correct. You are forgiven. I just was hoping everything was fine and just trying to do what I can. But if you're in this sounds really fun. I love the Holler from what I've read. I haven't gotten to play it yet because there's just so many things to play. Just haven't gotten around to yet. We did just finish up our little mini campaign where we did like a podcast YouTube channel type thing, which was kind of funny. Just because I'll say I do YouTube stuff. And we are going back to Savage Pathfinder to go to book 2 for the Rise of the Rune Lords. But I definitely like all these one-shots because it means that actually this would be a good one-shot for me to have for playing in the Holler. I think about it, just because it means that we can actually playtest it without having to go through like a whole entire plot point campaign. So look out for that. Moving on from that news, assuming that we don't I don't see the newsletter come in any moment. Which if you guys see it come in, just ping me in the chat and maybe I'll take a look. The other thing to note is that there is the Tome of Monsters, Horrific Threats for Savage Worlds, a small book, different monsters, really kind of creepy looking monsters if you look through the art. But they're made in Savage Worlds block style. So Savage Worlds stat blocks for all these different monsters and stuff. If you're interested in checking that out, go over to Kickstarter, take a look at that. I don't think I have this in the description right now, but I will throw this in the chat, and I'll try to remember to add it to the description later. The last piece of like extra news I wanted to go over was just there was one. I have a subscription on Drive-Thru RPG for trying to get like different Savage Worlds products to get notified for anything new that comes out. There's every once in a while there's a new thing that is interesting and such, and then one product jumped out to me this past round, and that is the Enchanted Realm Under the Bed Jumpstart. And basically, from what I can tell of the description and everything, is that you play as children who are somehow going from the real world to another world where magic and fairies and dryads and giants all coexist. And there's perils like evil witches that are thirsty for power. So it sounds like really fun. It kind of sounds like a fantasy version of like a Kids on Bikes thing, where like instead of like the kids are seeing all the monsters in real life, it's just that the kids are going to some other place. Almost actually more like a Chronicles of Narnia deal. So that sounds really fun. It is a pay what you want. So if you want the jump start, just pay what you want. If you want to throw in some extra money for the creator, usually the jump starts mean that there is another product coming. This is coming from a licensee owner, or not owner, but someone who's a licensee. And that usually this means that this is a product that they are working on to release in the future. And it sounds like a really fun product. And I actually really like the art on this, or just not even the art. The art does look nice, but almost like the font, I guess. Yeah, the font looks really cool. So I plan on checking this out as a possible like one shot. I'm gonna look through it. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to look through it all the way yet, but this looks really cool. So if you are interested in also checking that out, go take a look down at the link below, and we'll go from there. All right, so that's all the news I have. Actually, let me go ahead and take a look real quick at my email to see if that newsletter came through. It probably didn't. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. If we have time at the very end, maybe I will go through things and see if it came through since I started the live stream, and then maybe we can get more information on what's going on. What other kind of interesting things are in the newsletter? Today's main topic is your players keep succeeding. How to handle it as a GM. Thanks, Wildwood. Yeah. So yeah, main topic tonight is today we're going to talk about your players are succeeding, how to handle it as a GM. If you're just joining us, my name's Goose. This is the Savage Goose Show, where we talk about Savage Worlds and different topics that I kind of like come up with. Tend to be controversial apparently, because I feel like I get backlash all the time on Facebooks and stuff, but not like super negative. I'm not saying like nothing super negative, just comments. People are disagreeing with me, and that's fine. But the question is, how do we handle things when players just kind of never succeed, or always succeed? They always succeed. And is that a bad thing? Is it okay? That's going to be the conversation we have tonight. If you have your own thoughts, please leave them in the comments below. But I do ask that you hear me out on what the problem is. Make sure that it's clear on what, we all understand what it is I'm trying to address. So I'm going to actually go ahead and go here. This is a comment a post on Facebook. I kind of removed the user, but you can go to the Facebook group and find this post. And this is just one example post of a lot of posts that I tend to see on Reddit, on the Facebook group, on the Discord, different areas where people talk about Savage Worlds. And this is a common thing. I actually did a search through the subreddit, and this question, this problem, I'm going to put in air quotes, we're going to put this in air quotes, problem, has gone back and been asked about as far as like 11 years ago. I saw a post 11 years old that was asking this question. How do we handle how do we handle players just always succeeding? And I want to read through this real quick. For more experienced Savage Worlds players and GMs, how do you keep challenging your players and keep the game interesting mechanically? The Wild Die and Bennies skew the probabilities heavily in favor of the PCs. Usually this means that with even some skill overlap, the group most likely succeeds in trait checks if they want to. The dice can be fickle, but since the dice explode upwards and never downwards, I'm not sure what that even means, it's usually for the benefit of the PCs. In most cases, this makes for good pacing and is enjoyed by everyone, but I personally, and I think this is an important thing to listen to here, I think this is the GM speaking, feel that part of the fun of RPGs is trying to get them to get out of a jam caused by failure or succeed in something that is extremely unlikely. If the success is the norm, it kind of waters it down. Is what I'm trying to say. Even if the players don't publicly say so, I think they enjoy it when successes and failures are both frequent. Do you think this is an issue at all? How have you handled it? Is it okay to impose penalties heavily and let the trained characters shine this way? Demanding raises to get basic success most of the time? So there's a lot of things being addressed here, and I do want to kind of focus a little bit before we get too deep into things, before we get into the weeds of rules, mechanics, and how we should respond as GMs. I want to start with what they say here. I personally feel that's part of the fun of RPGs, and I want to start with kind of like talking about that. And what I mean by talking about that, I mean we have to recognize that GMs need to have fun too. I do not think that the GM having fun means that we need to have an adversarial relationship with our characters and with our players. I think a lot of people, when they saw my post about this, they thought, why are we creating this adversarial dynamic? What's wrong with succeeding all the time? And there's a lot of things I want to address. But I think I want to start with the premise that this GM feels that the game isn't as fun as it could be. Okay. And it seems that they're having fun, which is good. So we're gonna start there. Good. We're glad we're having fun. There's a lot of times when I see people in the comments of these kind of threads, they start with, well, if you're having fun and your player's having fun, what's the problem? But and maybe there isn't a problem. But they're coming to us with a problem. And I think, let me be clear, I love that the community is like that. I love that the community is, hey, you're having fun. That's great. That's all that matters. That is a very positive attribute for the Savage Worlds community. Seriously, it is. It's a great attribute for the community. But the players that are posting these are asking for help in something. Maybe they just need help understanding something about Savage Worlds. Maybe they need help understanding mechanics, or maybe they just need to understand that the game isn't about failure as much as maybe other games are. But we do need to actually address their concerns, right? We want to actually answer what it is that they are having a problem with. I would argue, as I said earlier, is that if someone's not having fun, and again, this person's probably the GM, and it's usually the GM who I think usually posts these questions. The GM needs to have fun too, right? And they are one of the players. They are playing this game too. They are, in a sense, really the linchpin to the game. Like, they are the ones that ensure this game happens, because if the GM doesn't GM the game, then they're not going to. There's no game, right? At least usually, unless you're playing some sort of solo rules or using the like Mythic GM emulator or some other GM emulator. But we want Savage Worlds to become more popular as a game system, which I do. I want Savage Worlds to be more popular because I think it's an amazing system that people are missing out on. We need to ensure that we are helping GMs have fun as well. And to be clear, like I said earlier, this is not a recent issue. This is not a Swayed issue. People have been asking this as far back as 11 years ago about how easy Savage Worlds seems to be to succeed in most situations. And we're going to address kind of what that means, because I think what people hear is like, oh, it's too easy. And I think what we miss out on is that sometimes for these players, we actually look at the way they've been running things. They actually ask, how are you running things? It is too easy because they aren't necessarily running the game in the correct way. And I think that, yes, the game, even when run correctly, results in more success and failures. I think there's some other things that we can address to kind of help the situation and kind of clear up some misunderstandings from other players and GMs about Savage Worlds. So let's kind of address the issue as they kind of brought up real quick. And then we'll kind of go into what people might be doing wrong and how they might be able to fix things. Again, if you have any comments about what I'm saying, please leave them down below. I hope we're getting on the same page. You understand what I'm trying to express concern about, because I care about this game. If you're watching this stream, I'm sure you care about this game. We want to make sure that everyone is having a good time, including the game master. So first thing, the first problem, again, this may not actually be a problem, putting this in air quotes. We're going to address the issue, and then we'll kind of explain the problem further and kind of go into what people might be doing wrong. First, the target number in Savage Worlds is usually 4. The only exceptions is when people are resisting certain skills. If you're resisting a taunt or a test of some sort, or maybe another a power, or if you are in melee combat and you're trying to hit someone's parry. That's the only 2 areas I can think of at least right now where the target number is not 4. Otherwise, it's a 4. If we assume that a player has a D6 in a skill, there's no modifiers, nothing. There's no modifiers being applied. Someone has a D6 in a skill and they have a D6 wild die, and they need to get let's say a notice roll, just because that's pretty much a pretty common thing. But let's just make something a little less common. Let's say it's a thievery roll to pick a lock. We're just giving them no modifiers, no problems. They have with a D6. They have a 75% chance of succeeding and a 26% chance of getting a raise. And that's pretty high. We're not talking like, the upper echelons of the dice arrangement where we have. It's just a D6. That's one step up, right? That's pretty high. If you are unskilled, let's say someone is unskilled at thievery. They're unskilled, which means that they are rolling a D4 and their D6 at a -2. The success rate is 32% with a raise rate of 13%. So if you are unskilled in thievery, and it's just a no modifiers check to pick this lock, you have a 1 in 3 chance of succeeding, which is, I think, a pretty good chance. It's not guaranteed. In fact, it's more likely you're not going to than you're going to, but it's a pretty good chance. And just bumping up to a D4 into a D6 or to a D6 gives you a 75% chance of succeeding. Now, again, I'm not saying this is a problem. I'm just trying to help people understand the issue that people are having with the game. That is 3 out of 4 times you're going to succeed, and 1 out of 4 times that you're going to get a raise. And that's only a D6 out of the D4, D6, D8, D10, D12, rank 2 of 5 ranks, right? On top of that, this person also mentioned that they have a problem with bennies. Now, I don't know if the math is on this part, on like if you spend a benny, how likely you are to re-roll and succeed on a no modifier check. Also, if you lawn, you also get a +2 when you do spend a benny. So there's a lot of math that goes on there that I'm not ready to go into. And by the way, there is a tool that I use. I don't think I linked it in the description. But there is a tool that I found that is very helpful for kind of showing you what the stats are. I don't think you want to use it in your games. I don't recommend using it in your games. This shouldn't affect anything. But I think if you're interested in the math, it's quite interesting. I will kind of post that into the chat right now. Okay. So again, I want to make sure that we are understanding what people are understanding as the problem. So this person feels, and I see, again, this is something I've seen on a lot of posts, and sometimes I feel myself, if I'm honest, where it feels like my players are always succeeding on different things. They're always succeeding. And why is that a problem? The problem that people are concerned about is if players are always succeeding, then there's no real drama. I think for me personally, it comes a lot in combat. If the combat is anticlimactic, the players go first, and they just all get ridiculous successes on a fight. One of the most common fights that the big fight that I can remember that one of my players actually took a big issue with Savage Worlds because of this, is that one of my players shot a T-Rex in the back of the head. It didn't really matter if it was the back of the head. It was just kind of what we decided for the narration. They shot a T-Rex and he got I want to say it was like a lot of damage. It was like with a pistol too, so it was inflicting a lot of damage, but it ended up kept acing, and it one-shotted that wild card T-Rex with toughness and stuff. Now this was an older book and everything. There's probably things. This was back in. It was in Suede, but it doesn't matter. Point being is that it one-shot this T-Rex. At the time, I wasn't using wound caps. I think it did like 6 wounds to this T-Rex, and so I didn't even try to soak. Maybe I did try soak and just always failed. I can't remember. It was a while ago. It was pre-pandemic, and that was one of the issues that one of my players in that game, not the player who succeeded on this, obviously, but my other player said like he did not like Savage Worlds because of that. Now he's opened up to that possibility of trying it again because I think, and I still think, that Savage Worlds is a great system. But I just want to make sure that you can kind of see into the insight of why people are concerned about this, because it just creates anticlimactic moments, and we want to have fun, great, creative moments. Now, what could I have done there differently? Probably nothing. Even if I did wound cap, if I was just outright failing all of my vigor rolls, it wouldn't have mattered, and the T-Rex would have been taken out. Doesn't really matter. But I think there are things based on what I see in the comments of these people who are saying these things, where it almost sounds like they are like just not failing at all. I think we kind of read this as they're always succeeding, meaning like, oh, they're succeeding a lot. I don't think succeeding a lot is a problem. I think the problem is that these GMs see as like they are always succeeding, and it's almost impossible for them to not succeed based on math and stuff. So I'm going to kind of address a few things. Why does this happen? What are people doing wrong that makes them feel this way? Well, one, they tend to not be using the rules correctly. One of the posts I saw was talking about someone who had downed one of their players, and they kept taking hits while they were down, and they kept spending bennies to stay alive. I'm not really sure what was happening. Maybe this player was super lucky or something, but once down, I personally find that it's actually quite hard for players to stay alive, or at least not leave the fight without taking an injury or something. And I think that part of the problem there, specifically to that particular example, I think the problem is that people often forget that they need to apply their wound penalties to that vigor roll when they get incapacitated. At least that's my understanding of the rules. If I'm wrong about that, feel free to leave a comment. I don't think I'm wrong about that. So we've been playing it for a while. If you're down though, you get these vigor rolls and you got your wound modifiers. That makes things rather difficult, I think. That's a -3 to your rolls if whatever else happens. So yeah, so that's one thing. I think that sometimes people just aren't playing by the rules as written. I think I saw a comment from Hamster Doom earlier about playing rules as written, and yeah. So there's something there. Okay. Additionally, I think that people often forget. This kind of goes along with I don't think people are playing it rules as written. Is I think they often forget about penalties that are built into the game. Illumination penalties, wounds, fatigue penalties, unstable platform, range, all sorts of other penalties could be happening. Penalties for making wild attacks or being distracted, those kind of things. I think people just often forget about those, and so and that takes some time to remember. It takes some time to remember those penalties. It takes time for them to learn about the game, to make sure they know about all these different penalties that are going to happen. And that being said, I don't want to feel like anyone, especially new players, need to feel like they need to know them all. I rather some get missed, and I miss some sometimes. We'll forget about some sometimes. We try and mark them if we're in a combat. We try and mark them on the board with the little tokens we have from Pinnacle. But sometimes we miss it, and that's fine, and we just move on, right? So that's one thing. The third thing is to make sure that you actually apply difficulty penalties. This one is one of the harder ones to remember if you're not used to it, because a lot of people are used to just, especially if you're coming from D&D, you just say, hey, okay, give me oh, you want to do that? Yeah, give me a perception roll. And they say, okay, I got a 12. And you're like, that feels like it's good enough. And you don't really like a lot of GMs or DMs in D&D I know don't actually have a number in mind when they ask for a roll. And the nice part about Savage Worlds is that there is always a number. It's always 4. But what we do need to remember is that if we feel like something's actually difficult, if you think that there's actually something that you need that's going to be hard to do, is that we need to be applying modifiers, negative modifiers of some sort. Back when I was playing 5e, what I often did is I would announce the DC to someone beforehand so that they would know as soon as they rolled based on their modifiers if they succeeded or not. And I just thought that was way more fun, even in 5e. Players knew what they needed to get, and this is true in Savage Worlds, just as it was for me back in my was playing D&D. I don't think that you want to be changing the target number either. A lot of posts I see talk about, how broken would it be for me to change the target number from like 4 to 6 to make things a little bit more difficult? And while the math is the same between, like, I double checked this earlier, increasing the target number to 6 and just giving a -2 penalty, I was like, that should be the same, but just double checking and check the math. Yeah, it's exactly the same. Don't change the target, because what's going to likely lead to is that you might start, if you get players get used to you just creating a magic number off the top of your mind, then they're relying on you to tell them if they succeed or not, rather than letting the dice tell them if they succeed or not. And I think that's one of the key differences in kind of like player trust with GMs, is that when the player succeeds, they roll a die, they know they succeeded, versus if they tell you the number, you have to let them know if they succeeded. And there's just like a little bit of a player trust difference there. So I do actually try to apply a penalty to the bonfire if you actually think it's hard, instead of just letting them, instead of trying to change the target number. Don't change the target number. I've even gotten to the point where I will tell people the parry of the monster that they're attacking. So I won't tell them like that right away, but like the first attack, they'll be like, oh, does this hit? I'm like, oh no, it's the target. This parry is a 7. Does a 6 hit? No, his parry is a 7. Now they know, and I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with that. I know what their parry is. They know what the monster's parry is, and this makes things more fair. Now, if you are having a hard time and you're coming from D&D, and you want like a guide for like what the penalty should be, I have a guide that is sort of loosely based off a table from D&D that I kind of stole and applied my own modifiers for. So this is just a guideline that I came up with. You can disagree with me. That's fine. I'm not that concerned. I'm not tied to this rule. So if you think something is very, very easy, and this is going to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's going to be 6 combinations here of things. If you think something is very easy, that should be like in D&D, like a DC 0 to 5, give them a +4. That's like they're going to succeed unless they crit fail, right? That's a don't crit fail check. If it's easy, which is like in D&D, like a DC 6 to 10, give them a +2. They should succeed, but there's a possibility they might not. They have other modifiers or penalties or anything like that. But it's an easy. The thing that they're doing is easy. If it's medium, like just a normal task, nothing complicated, just normal. Just don't give them a penalty at all. That'd be like a DC like 11 to 15. If it's a hard thing to do, which in D&D would be like a 16 to 20, give them -2. 21 to 25, very hard, -4. If it's nearly impossible, in D&D is 26 to 30. I'd say it's a -6 in Savage Worlds, which I don't think almost anyone does. The thing that you're going to tell me, though, is that this creates more successes than D&D does. And that is where we're going to kind of start switching into things and say, yes, you are right. That is going to create more success than D&D. By and large, Savage Worlds wants players to succeed. They want them to keep succeeding and moving on. Now, there's some things that we're going to talk about that can help you with understanding success in Savage Worlds, because I think there's more nuance to it than just pass and fail. I also want to encourage you to actually call for more checks. I think Savage Worlds checks are actually much quicker than they are in other games because, again, you're not waiting for the DM to interpret the results for you. You can just say, hey, yeah, that sounds cool. Give me a athletics check. Oh, hey, yeah, that sounds great. Give me a notice roll. And there's like, yep, I succeeded. Yep, I succeeded. Yes, I got successive raise. It's way easier and simpler to get results and know the meaning of the results from the player side when they roll dice, and it means that things go a lot quicker. So, go ahead and call for more checks. I think Savage Worlds lends itself well to calling for more checks. I think that people like rolling dice. At least my players like rolling dice. The more dice they roll, the happier they are, and the more engaged they tend to be, right? Because if someone asks a question and they get to roll, they're going to be more engaged. The next thing I want to say is that you want to separate success from raises. So, succeeding 4 is a success. Yeah, they succeeded whatever they do, right? That's a success. But I think oftentimes what a lot of players like, and I like to see, is that when someone gets a raise, we give them some sort of bonus tidbit. Like there is an actual bonus to what they were doing if they succeeded with a raise. Giving them not just like, yes, you succeed, but trying to give some sort of like bonus to them. Kind of like how if you get a critical failure, we tend to give them some sort of penalty that lasts for a little bit. That's not like something that's like necessarily built into the rules, but I think it's a nice fun thing that kind of goes, yes, you succeeded, and then some. Let's give you some more things. And in one sense, with that kind of gameplay, that kind of thought process, you can almost treat successes and failures and raises as oracle dice, kind of like from solo gaming, or if you're using like some sort of GM, other like DM emulator, GM emulator kind of system, where a success is a yes or a yes but. You succeeded, or you succeeded, but just very quick, I'm going to say this other thing though, just a heads up. And a raise is a extreme yes, like very much yes, or like a yes and. Like, yes, you do see this, but you also saw this other thing while you're looking around the paperwork. You found that paper that you're looking for, but you also notice this note on the lampshade that says, it tells you something about the person that's missing, right? Adding some other extra elements based on the roll, not just the success, but also the raises as well. And then failures also are just no, or at least not that your player is aware of, or character is aware of, at least. Also, if you want to also incorporate more opposed rolls tend to give more variance to success and such, which also means that puts your players kind of more firmly in the world, because they are trying to do things against other characters. They're doing stuff against other characters. Those characters are going to try to resist. Now, most of your characters that are in the game, the NPCs, they're going to be extras. They're not going to be as likely to succeed, because they're only rolling like one dice and they're not rolling a wild die. So there's a smaller chance of them succeeding against the player on any opposed roll. But the opposed roll does create more tension and more likelihood for the players to possibly fail and have to overcome this NPC in another way. So if you're worried about like trying to get those story elements where players can possibly fail or have like, or maybe not fail, maybe they're just going to come closer than they, you want them to succeed. They're going to succeed, but you want to at least be a little bit harder for them. I think it's a good way to do it. Going along with that, trying to create more opportunities for players to succeed. I keep saying users because I work with a lot of users at work. But if you want your players to succeed, and you should, I want to be clear on that. Players should succeed. But we do want to make sure it's a challenge for them and they're having fun, and they're just like, the most satisfying elements is when they just barely succeed, right? They succeed, but by the skin of their teeth. And we want to try to get that feeling across them as game masters. I want them to succeed. Okay, I'll make sure it's clear to everyone in the chat. I want people to succeed. I want players to succeed, but I do want them to have fun doing it and feel like they could have failed. I think that's kind of, maybe that's not the right wording, but you get my thought process. I also think that people should use subsystems. Okay, dramatic tasks, social conflicts, chases. The subsystems in Savage Worlds lend themselves greatly to kind of creating that tension that they need to do certain things in order to succeed. And it can be like, it can come down to, maybe at the very last part of the dramatic task, you're down, 3 tokens, and you need to get a success with 2 raises in order to get out of there. Maybe you had a few unlucky rolls early. Maybe you drew a club and you had a -2, and so you didn't succeed that last turn, and you really needed to. Those create those nice tense moments that can really kind of up that feeling of possible failure, but still allowing your players to succeed. And then finally, if it's not possible for them to do it, just say no. This is true with all RPGs, where it's like, oh, I want to do this insane thing. I want to jump to the moon. You can't jump to the moon. Okay, you just can't. You can't do it unless you're in a superpowers companion kind of game. Then maybe you can do that. But you get my point. If you're just like a fantasy setting or a modern day setting, you're just a normal person. You're not going to be able to roll athletics to jump to the moon. If that's kind of game you want to play, that's fine. I'm not judging. I'm just saying, feel free to say no, though. Okay, just tell players, no, it's not possible for you to do this. If it's actually not possible, feel free to tell your players that. So there we go. Now, I do think this situation kind of extends to combat as well, and I kind of mentioned this briefly earlier when I was talking about just players absolutely destroying certain monsters and stuff. Because people want a climatic battle. They want a really epic battle, very cinematic. We talk about Savage Worlds being a cinematic system, and we want to see some sort of cinematic battle. Mike Shea from the Lazy Dungeon Master channel, his pseudonym is like Sly Flourish. He talked about trying to create opportunities for bosses to feel cool, right? Because what's kind of anticlimactic is when players just completely trounce a character, and they just seem, they get built up throughout the campaign as this really strong person who is going to be a threat to them, and they want to, and then they want the floor with that character. Often that does not feel fun. I personally don't care for that. I think I've had players where they've had fights like that. And like, oh, it was kind of anticlimactic. I feel like you could have been that a little more tactical. And part of that is, and that's part of the problem, right? Some of the times we just need to be more tactical. And a lot of people who come into Savage Worlds don't know a lot of the tactics because we have different status effects. We have different systems. Like one of the things this is kind of embarrassing to admit, but one of the things that I didn't really piece together until recently is like, oh, if I have a gang of goblins that, all jump on my character, on one player, and all they do is shake him. Well, guess what? He's shaken. They can all move away now. He can't just do his what's it called? Where he like swings his sword around. His like little whirlwind attack. I can't remember what the edge is called right now. Where he just like attacks everybody in a circle. Well, yeah, if they all jump on him, shake him, jump back. Yeah, they can't do that. They can't use some sort of power to just blast everybody all at once, right? So there's some tactical things I think that people in combat at least need to come to better understand. I know that's the thing I need to work on is tactics in Savage Worlds. So just keep that in mind as well. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and look through all the comments. I'm a little nervous to do so. Let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, let's see here. Peter says it's absolutely not an issue with my players. I'm glad to hear it. Seriously, I'm glad that you guys don't have a problem with like players like seeing all the time or not that you don't. Sorry, that's the way I put it. I'm glad this is not an issue that your players having fun. That's the way I want to put this. I'm glad that you guys are not preventing fun for you or for your players. Pierre also says it's common for GMs to just use target numbers of 4 and not employ modifiers for all sorts of things like lighting, arm effects, and yeah, it is common. Some people just leave it out because they just want to move the game along. They want to be worried about the mechanics of different things, and that is an absolutely like okay thing, right? That's not something that I don't want to say that I'm downplaying this or saying that you need to be worried about all the different rules. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that for people who are concerned about that kind of stuff and want to try to give more of a challenge, that's something you can look into. That's part of the game. That's part of the rule set. Okay. Hamster Jim says a big no. A success is a success. Impose a negative 4 for difficult tasks. Exactly. If you think something's difficult, just apply a modifier. Okay. I saw one post that said like, oh, I don't like modifiers or imposing negatives because it feels like just GM fiat. And I'm like, okay, one, they also wanted to increase the target number instead. I'm like, well, that's just the same thing. That's the exact same result. But also, that's kind of your job as a GM. Your job is a little bit of GM fiat. Like you are the referee of this game. You decide if things are difficult or not. So, yeah. I think this was back when I was talking about the T-Rex. If you brain something, they'll die. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that people have to understand, that this game is swingy, and if you hit something hard enough, it will die. That's kind of what happens. Now, I don't think that I can understand people wanting to have combat go longer and have like more fun with it, and that's what the bennies on the GM side are for. I want to do a topic at some point on like how GMs should use bennies. I saw someone post that question a while back, and that's actually a question I was having before even they posted it. It's like, when should GMs use bennies? When should we? I saw someone say that you shouldn't ever. I think actually someone here I think said this, that you shouldn't even use GM bennies to soak. You should just use them to reroll attacks just to get more damage in. Sounds good to me. So looking through here a few other times. Peter, I'm not sure that you meant by this question, but I'm very curious to know what you actually did. So I want to hear more. The statement about GMs not having a DC in mind is stunning. Yep. No, I mean, I think a lot. You'd be surprised. I put people because like the thing about at least in D&D when it comes to DCs, that sometimes people they don't really have a number in mind when they first ask for it until they hear it. They're like, yeah, that sounds like enough. Because they don't. It goes one of two ways. If it's an adversarial relationship, that's not enough. Because I decided that wasn't enough. just now at this moment, and I want you to fail at this moment. And some GMs like, oh, I'm going to fudge what I don't want to say what it will be because I don't want them to fail, right? So sometimes they don't want to come up with a number because they either want them to fail or they want them to succeed. So that's kind of like there. Whereas I think Savage Worlds, because the target number is very clear, it's 4. You know the modifiers ahead of time. You roll. You know as a player immediately if you succeeded or failed. There is no, and the GM is just going to tell you, okay, here's what happens, and it just kind of moves the story along. It's not. It doesn't create that tense relationship there. Hamster Doom says, my players ask what's the penalty without me even bringing it up because they know there will be one. That's awesome. I'm jealous. I can imagine that can actually get kind of old sometimes. So you're like, there's no penalty, but I think that is really cool that people are actually asking that. That's awesome. Peter says, I'm totally cool with telling players the enemy's parry and toughness. Yeah, I think it brings out more strategy for them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the one I'm okay. And to be clear on something real quick on this point is, yeah, I think I think telling people the toughness and parry is actually important for them to kind of feel like they're in control a bit. It's about player agency, not necessarily monster agency and GM agency. The GM has all the agency in the world. Just because you tell them the numbers is not going to remove. It's going to remove a very small part of your agency. Not to mention, you know all theirs. And that being said, I do like the idea of there being a story to the combat. I've still been wrestling with that idea as well, so I'm not going to talk too much about that because I'm still not sure how I feel about that, or like what the answer is to that. It's dark out and difficult, and you're fatigued. It's right there. Yep. Yeah. So take everything that we talked about, and there you go. And I will say, like, one of the problems I have had is sometimes I swear it is impossible to wound my players sometimes. And again, I think this part of it is my own lack of strategy, tactics, and good use of my bennies. For instance, someone else said that you should try to use your bennies as a GM to pick up a better action card for combat. I think it's a good thing to think about. But I mean, I've had issues where I can't wound characters, and we're like, I'll have like 3 wild cards against 3 wild cards, and they just decimate my wild cards. Now, again, I'm sure I did something wrong, but and that's okay. It's a learning experience. We all learn from everything else. Let's see here. Common one for me is a dangerous quick encounter in the dark, and the players have wounds or fatigue. It's hard to get a raise against that. That's why the advantage there. See, this is actually another thing that I feel like I need to do, and maybe a lot of other players, and this is probably why we needed at some point to release some sort of better, not better, but some like other actual plays that maybe are quicker and shorter for players to actually like see run through. Ooh, Peter, at some point we should talk about maybe doing an actual play of like the test drive rules, or someone else anyone who's interested. We'll talk about that. I'll have to think about that more. Just so that people can see how the test drive rules worked out as far as applying penalties and stuff, and how like a lot of experienced GMs actually run things. Abstract Doom says difficulty 150,000, negative 150 million. They can try that jump, and he's talking about the moon jump. Efubers says, I am one of the GMs who are very light with the penalties. Rarely do I have a penalty above 4. I assume that means total, not like I'm going to give you a -6. Like, no, like a total of -4, I assume. So, Efubers, let me know. And is this like backwards? Sir Boofy? No. Let me know if that's what you meant. But yeah, so I hope that this kind of clarifies what I was trying to bring up as conversation. I know I do tend to make my video titles a little more controversial, partially because it gets people talking about it, even if they don't understand where I'm coming from. But also it gets clicks. So until people start clicking on happy videos, you got to do what you got to do. Anyways, I hope that for those of you who are new to GMing and are concerned about this topic, I hope this helps. I hope that this is insightful to you on how how to apply penalties and how to kind of have fun with it. basically my last thought is just and just kind of reiterate this point is that succeeding is good. Player succeeding is good, and it's not a problem. It's going to take even you as a GM some time to kind of, especially if you come from another system where they fail more often, it's going to take you a little more time to kind of make your way through that and kind of feel that everything's okay, that everything's like not a problem. But the thing that you also make sure that you're actually playing the game kind of rules is written in the way that it's intended, and just understanding that Savage Worlds is not like other games. I think a lot of the problems that we come with a lot of baggage from other systems, and that's got another video I want to talk about at some point, is all the baggage people come with into Savage Worlds from D&D, and kind of addressing that so that you can understand better how to enjoy this game for what it is and not for what it's missing from other systems and stuff. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that we can all enjoy this game together and have fun. And that is all I have. So thank you all for joining. Thanks, Peter, for all of your stuff. Thank you, Hamster Doom, both of you guys, for just being here all the time and commenting and talking about things. I really do appreciate it. And to all of you new GMs, I hope that this is helpful to you in playing your games more. Have a great games, and may all your games stay savage.